You made your choice, Marta. Now live with the sentence.
My marriage was built on trust. Like a Jenga tower. Looks solid until someone's drunk enough to pull the wrong block. I'm Dr. Simon Arden, 41 years old, forensic law professor at Northwestern University, and apparently the last person in Chicago to know my wife was cheating on me. The irony wasn't lost on me. I taught criminal investigation techniques to future lawyers, yet I couldn't spot a liar sleeping next to me for 6 months. Marta had always been charming. That's how she climbed the ladder at Peterson and Associates, one of Chicago's premier advertising agencies. 39 years old, blonde, sharp as a razor blade, and twice as cutting when she wanted to be. We'd been married 19 years, and I thought I knew every expression that crossed her face. I was wrong. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday evening in March. Marta came home 3 hours late, claiming a client emergency that required her immediate attention. Her lipstick was gone, her hair slightly mussed, and she smelled like expensive cologne, not the pill store stuff I wore. "How was your emergency?" I asked, not looking up from the stack of midterm exams I was grading. "Exhausting," she said, kicking off her heels with more force than necessary. Derek and I had to completely restructure the Morrison campaign. The client threatened to pull their account. Derek Graham, Marta's business partner, 34 years old, drives a restored 1967 Mustang Fastback and looks like he stepped out of a men's cologne advertisement. The kind of guy who calls everyone buddy and thinks a firm handshake can solve world hunger. "Derek couldn't handle it alone?" I asked. Marta paused in the doorway, her back to me. "It required both of us, Simon. Some things are too important to leave to chance." The way she said it made my stomach twist, like she was talking about more than advertising. Our daughter Amelia, 18 and sharp as her mother, but with my sense of humor, wandered into the kitchen. "Mom, you missed dinner again. Dad made his famous burned chicken." "It wasn't burned," I protested. "It was aggressively seasoned." Amelia grinned. "The smoke alarm disagrees." Marta barely smiled. 6 months ago, she would have laughed. Now she just grabbed a bottle of water and headed upstairs. "I'm tired. Don't wait up." I didn't. The second crack appeared a week later at our neighbor's barbecue. The Hendersons threw these things every month, and half the neighborhood showed up to gossip and drink cheap beer. I was standing near the grill, listening to Tom Henderson explain his new lawnmower like it was a space shuttle, when I overheard Claudia Martinez talking to her friend Janet. Claudia was Marta's best friend and biggest enabler, the kind of woman who thought infidelity was romantic, as long as it happened to someone else's marriage. "I'm telling you, Janet, Marta's glowing lately," Claudia said, her voice carrying over the sizzle of hamburgers. "Must be all that overtime she's putting in with Derek." Janet giggled. "I bet Derek's got stamina. Did you see him at the Morrison presentation? The way he looked at Marta?" My grip tightened on my beer bottle. Tom was still talking about his mower, but his voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. "They make a good team," Claudia continued. "Better than some married couples I know." She glanced in my direction when she said it. The look lasted half a second, but it hit me like a punch to the gut. I excused myself and went home early, claiming a headache. It wasn't entirely a lie. The third crack became a full break 2 days later. I was looking for a pen in Marta's home office when I found the wine glass. Crystal, expensive, with a lipstick stain on the rim. The color was deep red. Marta hated red lipstick. Said it made her look like a vampire. Next to the glass was a receipt from the Palmer House Hotel, presidential suite. 2 nights charged to MD. Marta Daniels, her maiden name. The date was last Tuesday, the night of her client emergency. I sat in her leather chair staring at the receipt and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, not yet. Just a terrible, crystal-clear understanding that my life had just changed forever. My phone buzzed. Text message from Alan Reeves, my colleague and closest friend. "Faculty meeting moved to 4 p.m. Try not to fall asleep this time." I almost laughed. Faculty meetings seemed incredibly unimportant right now. That evening, Marta was in the shower when her phone rang. I was sitting on our bed, still holding the hotel receipt, when I heard Derek's voice through the speaker. "Hey, beautiful. Just wanted to hear your voice before bed." I picked up the phone without thinking. "She's in the shower." Silence. Then, "Oh, Simon, I must have dialed wrong." "Must have," I said. My voice sounded calm, almost pleasant. "Happens to the best of us, Derek." "Right. Well, tell Marta I called about the Henderson account. I'll be sure to mention it." The line went dead. I set the phone back on the nightstand and waited for Marta to come out of the bathroom. When she did, wrapped in her terry cloth robe, hair damp and smelling like lavender shampoo, she looked exactly like the woman I'd married 19 years ago. "Derek called," I said. "Something about the Henderson account." She froze for just a moment, then she smiled. "Oh, that? It's nothing urgent. I'll call him back tomorrow." "I'm sure you will." She looked at me strangely. "Are you feeling okay? You seem different." I held up the hotel receipt. "Just wondering about your client emergency last Tuesday." The color drained from her face. For a moment, I thought she might confess everything. Apologize, beg forgiveness, give me some reason to fight for our marriage. Instead, she lifted her chin and said, "I don't know what you think you found, but you're wrong." "Am I?" "Yes, and frankly, Simon, I don't appreciate being interrogated in my own bedroom." Her own bedroom, not ours. I stood up, folded the receipt, and put it in my pocket. "You're right, Marta. This is your bedroom. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. Simon, don't be ridiculous. Good night." I walked out and closed the door behind me. As I headed down the hall, I heard her phone buzz with a text message. Then another. Probably Derek, wondering what went wrong with his phone call. I lay awake in the guest bed until dawn, staring at the ceiling and planning my next move. Because if there's one thing I learned from teaching criminal law, it's this. When someone betrays you, you better have all the evidence before you strike back. And I was just getting started. The thing about being a forensics professor is that you learn to think like both a criminal and a cop. You understand how people hide evidence and, more importantly, how they get caught. Marta thought she was clever. Derek thought he was charming. They had no idea they were dealing with someone who'd spent 15 years teaching students how to build airtight cases. I started my investigation the next morning, not with dramatic confrontations or hired private investigators. Those were for movies. Real investigation is patient, methodical, and boring. You collect facts, verify sources, and build a timeline that can't be disputed. First, I checked our credit card statements. 3 charges at the Palmer House over the past 2 months, all on days when Marta claimed to be working late. 2 charges at Romano's, an expensive Italian restaurant downtown. Marta hated Italian food, said it was too heavy. Second, I called the university's IT department. My friend Carlos owed me a favor from when I'd helped his son get into Northwestern's pre-law program. Within an hour, I had access to the call logs from Marta's office phone. 47 calls to Derek's personal cell phone in the past month, most lasting over 30 minutes. Third, I did something that felt dirty but necessary. I checked Marta's browser history on our shared laptop. Dating sites? No. Hotel booking sites? Yes. She'd searched for romantic weekend getaways within driving distance of Chicago and best hotels for privacy in downtown Chicago. The evidence was overwhelming, but I needed something undeniable. Something that would end any possibility of gaslighting or denial. I got my chance the following Friday. Marta announced she was working late again, another client emergency that required Derek's personal attention. She left the house at 7 p.m. dressed in a black cocktail dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. The irony was perfect. I waited 30 minutes, then drove downtown to the Palmer House. Derek's ridiculous Mustang was parked in the hotel's valet area, gleaming under the streetlights like a beacon of adultery. I parked across the street and waited. At 9:47 p.m., they emerged from the hotel lobby together. Derek's hand was on the small of Marta's back, guiding her toward his car. She was laughing at something he'd said, her head thrown back in genuine joy. I hadn't seen her laugh like that in months. I pulled out my phone and started recording. They stopped beside the Mustang, and Derek pressed her against the passenger door, kissing her with the kind of passion I remembered from our early marriage. Marta's hands were in his hair, her body molded against his like they were teenagers sneaking around behind the gym. The kiss lasted 43 seconds. I timed it. When they broke apart, Derek said something that made Marta giggle. Then he opened her door, helped her into the car, and jogged around to the driver's side like a man who'd just won the lottery. I had them. Clear video, recognizable faces, undeniable intimacy, but I needed more than evidence. I needed leverage. That's when I remembered Claudia's big mouth. Claudia Martinez worked as a social media coordinator for a local nonprofit. She was also the neighborhood's unofficial gossip network, with a Facebook friends list that read like the Chicago phone book. More importantly, she was terrible with technology and frequently sent messages to the wrong people. I created a fake email account and sent Claudia the video with a simple message. Thought you'd want to see this before it gets out. A concerned friend. Claudia's response came within minutes. OMG, who is this? How did you get this video? I didn't reply. I didn't need to. By Monday morning, the video had spread through Peterson and Associates like wildfire. Claudia, in her excitement to share the juicy gossip, had accidentally sent it to the agency's staff group chat instead of her personal friends. 23 employees, including Derek's wife Sarah and the agency's managing partner, received a high-definition video of Derek and Marta's passionate embrace. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Sarah Graham filed for divorce by Tuesday. The managing partner called an emergency meeting to discuss inappropriate workplace relationships. 3 of the agency's biggest clients, all family-owned businesses with strong religious values, began asking pointed questions about the moral character of their account managers. Derek's perfect life started crumbling like a house of cards in a windstorm. But Marta still hadn't confessed to me. She came home Tuesday night acting like nothing had happened, chattering about her day like she always did. The cognitive dissonance was stunning. Her professional life was imploding, but she was still trying to maintain the lie at home. I let her talk for 20 minutes. Then I said, "How was Derek today?" She paused mid-sentence. "What do you mean?" "I mean, how was Derek? You know, your business partner who's going through a messy divorce because someone caught him cheating on camera?" The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Marta's face went through several expressions: surprise, fear, calculation, and finally, defiance. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really? Because I have a copy of the video. Would you like to see it?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. She stared at the frozen image of herself in Derek's arms, her face pale but her jaw set in stubborn denial. "That could be anyone," she said. "Marta, it's you. In the dress I bought you. Outside the hotel you've been visiting for 2 months, kissing the man you've been calling 47 times a month. You've been spying on me. I've been investigating my wife's suspicious behavior. There's a difference." She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the kitchen floor. "I can't believe you'd violate my privacy like this. What kind of marriage do we have if you don't trust me?" The audacity was breathtaking. She was cheating on me with her business partner, lying about it to my face, and somehow I was the villain for discovering the truth. "We don't have a marriage, Marta. We have a performance, and frankly, your acting needs work. Simon, you're being paranoid. Stop." I held up my hand. "Just stop. I have video evidence, phone records, credit card statements, and hotel receipts. I know about Romano's restaurant, the Palmer House suite, and Derek's late-night phone calls. I know you've been lying to me for months, probably longer. So please, for once in your life, have the courage to tell me the truth." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. The mask of innocent confusion fell away, replaced by something harder and colder. "Fine," she said. "You want the truth? Derek makes me feel alive. He makes me laugh. He treats me like a woman, not a roommate who happens to share his mortgage. So this is my fault." "You tell me, Simon. When was the last time you surprised me? When was the last time you looked at me like I was the most beautiful woman in the world? Derek does that every day. Derek's married. Not for much longer." The casual cruelty of that statement hit me like a physical blow. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning a future with him. Our 19-year marriage was just an inconvenience to be disposed of. I stood up slowly, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. "You know what, Marta? You're right. I haven't been the perfect husband, but I've been faithful. I've been honest, and I've been here every day trying to build a life with someone who was already planning to leave. Simon, I'm not finished." My voice was quiet, but she stepped back anyway. Maybe she heard something in my tone that warned her she'd pushed too far. "You want Derek? You can have him, but you're not taking my kids, my house, or my dignity with you. And you're sure as hell not going to paint me as the villain in the story." "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled, and it felt like winter. "It means you picked the wrong man to betray, Marta. I teach people how to destroy lives with evidence and legal procedure. Did you really think I'd just roll over and let you walk away with everything?" For the first time since this conversation started, she looked genuinely afraid. "You're scaring me, Simon." "Good," I said. "Because you should be scared. You have no idea what's coming next." I walked out of the kitchen, leaving her standing there in the wreckage of our marriage. As I headed upstairs, I heard her phone buzz with a text message. Probably Derek. wondering why his perfect plan was falling apart. He was about to find out. 3 weeks after our kitchen confrontation, Marta filed for divorce. Not just any divorce, a scorched earth, take-no-prisoners legal assault designed to destroy my reputation and leave me with nothing but dead and supervised visitation rights. Her lawyer was Victoria Sterling, Marta's older sister and one of Chicago's most ruthless divorce attorneys. Victoria had built her career on the principle that men were inherently untrustworthy and deserved whatever punishment the legal system could inflict. She specialized in portraying her female clients as victims and their husbands as controlling monsters. The petition was a masterpiece of character assassination. According to the documents, I was an emotionally distant workaholic who'd driven my wife into the arms of another man through years of neglect and psychological misuse. I was allegedly unstable, potentially dangerous, and unfit for unsupervised contact with our children. The evidence Victoria presented was thin but cleverly constructed. She had statements from Claudia and 2 other friends claiming they'd witnessed my erratic behavior at social gatherings. She had a report from a psychologist who'd never met me, diagnosing me with narcissistic personality disorder based on Marta's descriptions of our marriage. She even had a restraining order request, claiming I'd threatened Marta with physical violence. It was complete fiction, but it was professionally packaged fiction. Victoria knew that family court judges were predisposed to believe women who claimed misuse, and she was betting that I'd be too shocked by the accusations to mount an effective defense. She was wrong. The hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in Cook County Family Court. I arrived early, dressed in my best Navy suit and carrying a leather briefcase that had belonged to my father. Victoria and Marta were already there, sitting at the plaintiff's table like they owned the courtroom. Derek was in the gallery wearing an expensive charcoal suit and looking like he'd stepped out of a men's fashion magazine. He caught my eye and nodded slightly, like we were old friends meeting for coffee instead of adversaries in a legal war. The judge was Honorable Margaret Chen, a stern woman in her 50s who'd built her reputation on being fair but tough. I'd never appeared before her, but I knew her by reputation. She didn't suffer fools, and she hated lawyers who wasted her time with frivolous motions. When Judge Chen entered the courtroom, everyone stood. She took her seat, adjusted her glasses, and looked down at the case file. Sterling versus Arden, she said. Petition for dissolution of marriage with allegations of emotional misuse and requests for emergency custody and financial support. Victoria stood up. Your Honor, Victoria Sterling representing the petitioner, Marta Arden. We're seeking immediate relief for a woman who's been trapped in a harmful and emotionally destructive marriage for nearly 2 decades. Judge Chen looked at me. Mr. Arden, I don't see an attorney listed for the respondent. Are you representing yourself? I stood up. Yes, Your Honor, Dr. Simon Arden, representing myself. Doctor? I teach forensic law at Northwestern University, Your Honor. I'm familiar with court procedures. Judge Chen's eyebrows rose slightly. Very well. Ms. Sterling, present your case. What followed was a 90-minute performance worthy of an Oscar. Victoria painted a picture of Marta as a long-suffering wife who'd endured years of emotional neglect and psychological manipulation. She presented the witness statements, the psychological evaluation, and a timeline of my alleged toxic behavior that stretched back to the early years of our marriage. Marta took the stand and delivered her testimony with tears in her eyes and tremor in her voice. She described a husband who'd grown cold and distant, who'd criticized her appearance, dismissed her career ambitions, and made her feel worthless in her own home. She claimed I'd become increasingly paranoid and controlling, monitoring her phone calls and following her to work. It was a compelling performance, and I could see some of the court staff nodding sympathetically. Victoria had coached her well. Then it was my turn. I stood up slowly, walked to the lectern, and placed my briefcase on top. The courtroom was dead silent. Your Honor, I said, I'd like to begin by addressing the psychological evaluation that Ms. Sterling has submitted as evidence. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. This evaluation was conducted by Dr. Patricia Hoffman, a licensed psychologist who, according to her own testimony, has never met me, never interviewed me, and never observed my behavior firsthand. Her diagnosis is based entirely on second-hand accounts provided by the petitioner. Judge Chen leaned forward. What's your point, Dr. Arden? My point, Your Honor, is that Dr. Hoffman violated the fundamental ethical principles of her profession. The American Psychological Association's Code of Ethics explicitly prohibits psychologists from diagnosing individuals they haven't personally examined. Dr. Hoffman's evaluation is not only worthless as evidence, it's grounds for a complaint to the state licensing board. I pulled out another document. I've taken the liberty of filing that complaint this morning. Dr. Hoffman's license is now under review. Victoria shot to her feet. Objection! The respondent is attempting to intimidate our expert witness. I'm not intimidating anyone, I said calmly. I'm pointing out that your expert witness is either incompetent or corrupt. Possibly both. Judge Chen banged her gavel. That's enough. Dr. Arden, do you have evidence to support your position? Yes, Your Honor. Substantial evidence. I opened my briefcase again and began pulling out documents. Phone records, credit card statements, hotel receipts, screenshots of text messages, the video of Marta and Derek outside the Palmer house. Your Honor, the petitioner claims I've been emotionally harmful and controlling. The evidence shows that she's been conducting an extramarital affair with her business partner for at least 6 months. She's used our joint credit cards to pay for hotel rooms where she met her lover. She's lied repeatedly about her whereabouts and activities, and she's now attempting to use the court system to punish me for discovering her infidelity. The courtroom erupted. Victoria was on her feet, shouting objections. Marta was crying, but now they looked like tears of panic rather than pain. Derek was staring at me with undisguised hatred. Judge Chen banged her gavel repeatedly. Order! Order in my courtroom! When the noise died down, she looked directly at me. Dr. Arden, these are serious allegations. Do you have proof? I walked to the court clerk and handed her a USB drive. Video evidence, Your Honor, recorded in a public place showing the petitioner and her lover in an intimate embrace outside the Palmer House Hotel. Judge Chen inserted the drive into her computer and watched the video. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her jaw tighten slightly. Miss Sterling, she said, would you like to respond to this evidence? Victoria looked like she'd been punched in the stomach. She whispered urgently with Marta for several seconds, then stood up. Your Honor, my client's personal relationships are not relevant to the issue of her husband's emotionally harmful behavior. Actually, they are, I said, because they demonstrate a pattern of deception and manipulation that directly contradicts her claims of being a helpless victim. I pulled out one more document. Your Honor, I'd also like to submit this psychological evaluation of the petitioner, conducted by Dr. Robert Martinez, a licensed psychologist who actually interviewed both parties and observed our interactions firsthand. Victoria's face went white. You had us evaluated without our consent? I had us evaluated as part of my preparation for this hearing. Dr. Martinez's findings are quite interesting. He concluded that the petitioner exhibits classic signs of narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial behavior, while I show no signs of the psychological instability alleged in your complaint. Judge Chen took the evaluation and read it silently. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Finally, she looked up. Miss Sterling, I'm dismissing your petition for emergency custody and financial support. The evidence presented by the respondent directly contradicts your client's testimony, and I'm not inclined to grant relief based on what appears to be perjured statements. Your Honor, I'm not finished. Judge Chen's voice was ice cold. Miss Sterling, your client has committed perjury in my courtroom. She's made false allegations of misuse, submitted fraudulent psychological evaluations, and wasted the court's time with frivolous motions. I'm referring this matter to the state attorney's office for investigation of potential criminal charges. Marta burst into tears, real ones this time. Victoria looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Derek was already heading for the exit. Furthermore, Judge Chen continued, I'm granting the respondent's counterpetition for divorce on grounds of adultery. The petitioner will receive no spousal support, and custody of the minor children will be awarded to the respondent pending a full investigation by the Department of Children and Family Services. I felt a surge of triumph so intense it was almost physical. Marta had tried to destroy me, and instead she destroyed herself. As we left the courtroom, Victoria grabbed my arm. This isn't over, Simon. We'll appeal. I looked at her with the same cold smile I'd given Marta in our kitchen. Good luck with that, Victoria, but you might want to brush up on the ethics rules before your next case. I'd hate for you to follow Dr. Hoffman's path to professional disgrace. Outside the courthouse, Derek was waiting by his Mustang. He looked like a man who'd just watched his perfect life explode in front of his eyes. Congratulations, he said as I walked past. You won. I stopped and turned to face him. No, Derek, I survived. There's a difference. What happens now? I smiled. Now you get to find out what it's like to be the other man in a very public, very messy scandal. Enjoy explaining that to your next wife. I walked away, leaving him standing there in the wreckage of his own making. Behind me, I could hear Marta screaming at Victoria, their voices echoing off the courthouse steps like the cries of dying birds. The war was just beginning. Victory in court was satisfying, but it was just the opening move. Marta and Derek had tried to destroy my life with lies and manipulation. Now I was going to return the favor with truth and consequences. The beauty of revenge is that it works best when your enemies do most of the work themselves. Cheaters, liars, and narcissists have a fatal flaw. They can't help but make more mistakes when they're under pressure. My job was to apply that pressure systematically and watch them self-destruct. I started with Derek's precious Mustang. The car was his pride and joy, a 1967 fastback he'd restored himself over 3 years. He'd shown me pictures of the engine at a neighborhood barbecue, explaining every modification like he was describing his firstborn child. The car represented everything Derek thought he was: classic, powerful, irresistible to women. It was parked outside his apartment complex every night, gleaming under the streetlights like a beacon of masculine insecurity. I didn't key it or slash the tires. That would have been crude and potentially criminal. Instead, I did something much more elegant. I hired a professional car detailer to give it a complete makeover while Derek was at work. The detailer used a special paint that looked exactly like Derek's original midnight blue in normal light, but turned bright pink under camera flashes and certain types of LED lighting. He also installed a small Bluetooth speaker under the hood, programmed to play the opening bars of My Girl by The Temptations whenever Derek started the engine. The transformation was invisible until Derek tried to impress someone with his ride. Then, his macho muscle car would turn cotton candy pink and serenade potential dates with Motown classics. The first time it happened, Derek was taking a client to lunch. He pulled up to the restaurant, stepped out of what looked like his normal car, and posed for a selfie with the client. When the camera flash went off, the Mustang turned bright pink in the photo. Derek stared at his phone in confusion, while his client laughed so hard he nearly choked on his appetizer. The second time, Derek was trying to pick up a woman at a downtown bar. He walked her to his car, started the engine with a confident smile, and was immediately serenaded by the Temptations, crooning about love and devotion. The woman burst into giggles and asked if he was planning to propose on the first date. By the third incident, Derek had figured out something was wrong, but he couldn't prove I was involved. The modifications were professionally installed and completely legal. The paint was high-quality automotive coating, not vandalism. The speaker was a standard Bluetooth device, not a destructive prank. Derek's frustration was beautiful to watch, but the car was just the appetizer. The main course was Derek's professional reputation. I'd spent 15 years building relationships with lawyers, investigators, and court personnel throughout Chicago. These weren't just professional contacts. They were friends who respected my work and trusted my judgment. When I quietly mentioned that Derek Graham was the kind of man who'd sleep with a married woman and then help her file false misuse charges against her husband, word spread quickly through the legal community. Within 2 weeks, Derek's agency lost 3 major clients, not because of any formal complaints or legal action, but because Chicago's legal and business communities are smaller than people think. Lawyers talk to each other. Judges remember names. Court clerks have long memories and longer tongues. Derek's reputation went from rising star to that guy who breaks up marriages almost overnight. Meanwhile, Marta was dealing with her own professional meltdown. The video of her kissing Derek had gone viral within the advertising industry, shared gleefully by competitors who'd always resented Peterson and Associates' success. Marta's clients began asking pointed questions about the agency's moral standards and family values. The final blow came when I leaked information about Marta's false misuse allegations to a reporter at the Chicago Tribune. The story ran on a Tuesday morning under the headline, "Ad Executive Files False Misuse Charges Against Husband." It included details about the perjured testimony, the fraudulent psychological evaluation, and the video evidence that exposed Marta's affair. By noon, Peterson and Associates had suspended Marta pending a full investigation. By evening, 3 more clients had terminated their contracts. By the end of the week, Marta was unemployed and unemployable in Chicago's advertising industry. But I wasn't finished. The pièce de résistance came during the agency's annual Client Appreciation Gala, held at the Four Seasons Hotel downtown. It was a black tie affair attended by Chicago's business elite, the kind of event where careers are made and destroyed over cocktails and small talk. Derek attended despite his recent troubles, probably hoping to salvage what remained of his professional relationships. Marta wasn't invited. Suspended employees don't get to schmooze with clients. But she showed up anyway, dressed in a stunning red gown and acting like she owned the room. I arrived fashionably late, wearing my father's vintage tuxedo and carrying a small gift bag. I'd been invited by 3 different clients who'd heard about my situation and wanted to show their support. Chicago's business community loves an underdog, especially one who fights back with style. The confrontation happened near the bar, where Derek was holding court with a group of potential clients. He was in full charm mode, spinning some story about market trends and consumer psychology, when he noticed me approaching. "Gentlemen," I said, joining the circle with a warm smile, "I hope Derek's been entertaining you with stories about his recent career highlights." Derek's face went pale, but he managed a stiff smile. "Simon, I didn't expect to see you here." "Really? I'm surprised you didn't recognize my name on the guest list. After all, you've been paying such close attention to my personal life lately." The potential clients looked confused. One of them, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit, asked, "Do you two know each other?" "Oh, yes," I said. "Derek here has been sleeping with my wife for the past 6 months. In fact, he helped her file false misuse charges against me just last month. Didn't you, Derek?" The silence was deafening. Derek's face went through several shades of red before settling on a sickly gray. "That's not... You're misrepresenting." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone and showed the screen to the group. "Would you like to see the video evidence? It's quite compelling." Derek lunged for my phone, but I stepped back smoothly. Now, Derek. Violence won't solve your problems. Trust me, I've tried." The potential clients were backing away like Derek had developed a contagious disease. One of them muttered something about moral character and walked away entirely. "You're insane," Derek hissed. "Actually, I've been professionally evaluated. Clean bill of mental health, unlike some people in this room." That's when Marta appeared, pushing through the crowd like an avenging angel in red silk. "Simon, what are you doing here?" "Enjoying the party, dear. You look lovely, by the way. Red really is your color. Much better than that cheap lipstick you left on the wine glass in your office." Marta's composure cracked. "You bastard! You've ruined everything." "I've ruined everything?" "Marta, you're the one who chose to have an affair. You're the one who filed false charges. You're the one who committed perjury in open court. I just made sure people knew the truth." "The truth?" Marta's voice was rising, drawing attention from across the room. "The truth is that you're a cold, vindictive man who can't stand the thought of me being happy." "Happy? Is that what you call this?" I gestured around the room, where dozens of Chicago's business elite were watching our confrontation with fascination. "Because you look miserable to me." Derek tried to intervene. "Look, Simon, maybe we can work this out privately." "Privately?" I laughed. "Derek, you made this public the moment you started sleeping with my wife. You made it personal when you helped her try to destroy my reputation in court. And you made it permanent when you decided I was too weak to fight back." I reached into my gift bag and pulled out a small, wrapped box. "Speaking of gifts, I brought you something." Derek took the box suspiciously. Inside was a keychain in the shape of a scarlet letter A for adultery. "A little memento," I said. "So you never forget this moment." Derek stared at the keychain, his hands shaking with rage. "You think you've won? You think this is over?" I smiled. "Derek, this isn't about winning or losing. This is about consequences. You made choices and now you get to live with the results. Welcome to the real world." I turned to leave, then paused and looked back at Marta. "Oh, and dear, the divorce papers will be finalized next week. Don't forget to update your emergency contacts at work. Oh, wait, you don't have work anymore." As I walked away, I could hear Marta screaming at Derek, their voices echoing across the Four Seasons elegant ballroom like the sound of breaking glass. The war was escalating beautifully. The gala confrontation was supposed to be my final move, the dramatic climax that would send Marta and Derek slinking away to lick their wounds in private. Instead, it turned them desperate. And desperate people make dangerous decisions. I learned this the hard way when I came home from teaching my Thursday evening seminar to find my front door standing wide open and my house ransacked. They'd been thorough, every drawer pulled out, every closet searched, Every piece of furniture moved. My home office looked like a tornado had hit it. Papers scattered across the floor, filing cabinets emptied, my computer missing from the desk. I called the police, but I already knew who was responsible. Marta still had a key to the house, and Derek was just desperate enough to help her look for something they could use against me, probably hoping to find evidence of my surveillance activities or some other ammunition for their legal counterattack. What they didn't know was that I'd anticipated this possibility. All my important documents were stored in a safety deposit box at the bank. My computer files were backed up to a secure cloud server, and I'd installed hidden security cameras throughout the house after our courtroom confrontation. The police found the footage very interesting. Marta and Derek, clearly identifiable, spending 3 hours tearing apart my home while looking for evidence they could use to destroy me. Breaking and entering, destruction of property, theft of personal belongings, all captured in high-definition video. The irony was perfect. They'd committed actual crimes while looking for evidence of imaginary ones. But their legal troubles were just the beginning. The real meltdown started when Marta tried to take our children. Amelia was home from her freshman year at Northwestern for spring break, and our son Ross had driven down from Wisconsin for a family visit. They were both staying at the house, trying to navigate the emotional minefield of their parents' divorce with the resilience of young adults who'd rather be anywhere else. I was at the university when Marta made her move. She showed up at the house with Derek and 2 large suitcases, announcing that she was taking the kids to stay with her mother in Florida until the situation stabilized. Amelia called me immediately. "Dad, Mom's here with Derek and she's acting crazy. She says we have to pack right now and come with her to Grandma's house. Put her on the phone. She won't talk to you. She says you're dangerous and she's protecting us from your escalating behavior." I was already heading for my car. "Amelia, listen to me carefully. You and Ross are adults. You don't have to go anywhere you don't want to go. If your mother tries to force you, call emergency immediately. Dad, she's crying and saying terrible things about you. Derek keeps nodding and agreeing with everything she says. It's really scary. I'm on my way. Don't let them take you anywhere." I broke every speed limit between the university and my house. When I arrived, Derek's pink Mustang was parked in my driveway, and I could hear shouting from inside the house. I found them in the living room, Marta hysterical, Derek trying to play peacemaker, and my kids looking like they wanted to disappear into the furniture. Suitcases were scattered around the room, half-packed with clothes and personal belongings. "What's going on here?" I asked, keeping my voice calm despite the rage building in my chest. Marta spun around, her face streaked with tears and mascara. "Simon, thank God you're here. I was just explaining to the children that they need to come with me until you get the help you need." "What help would that be?" "You're having a breakdown. You've been stalking me, harassing Derek, ruining our careers, destroying our reputations. I've been exposing your lies and holding you accountable for your actions. There's a difference." Derek stepped forward, trying to look authoritative. "Simon, maybe it would be best if the kids stayed with Marta for a while. Just until things calm down." I looked at him with genuine amazement. "Derek, you broke into my house yesterday and stole my computer. You're currently facing criminal charges for burglary and destruction of property. What part of this situation makes you think you're qualified to give parenting advice?" "That's different." "No, it's not. You're a criminal who's been sleeping with my wife and helping her commit perjury. You have no legal authority over my children, no moral standing to judge my parenting, and about 30 seconds to get out of my house before I call the police." Marta grabbed Ross's arm. "We're leaving. Now." Ross, 20 years old and built like a linebacker, gently removed her hand from his arm. "Mom, I'm not going anywhere. Dad's right. You and Derek are the ones acting crazy." "Ross, please." "No, Mom. You cheated on Dad, lied about it, tried to have him arrested on fake charges, and now you've broken into his house and stolen his stuff. I love you, but I'm not going to pretend this is his fault." Amelia nodded in agreement. "Mom, you need help. Professional help. This isn't normal behavior." Marta looked at her children like they'd betrayed her. "You don't understand. Your father has been manipulating you, turning you against me." "Actually," I said, "I've been completely honest with them. I showed them the evidence of your affair, the court documents, and the police report from yesterday's break-in. They're adults, Marta. They can make their own decisions based on facts instead of hysteria." Derek tried one more time. "Simon, be reasonable." "Derek, shut up." My voice was quiet, but something in my tone made him step back. You've destroyed your marriage, ruined your career, and committed multiple felonies, all for a woman who's clearly having a psychological breakdown. At what point do you start questioning your life choices? You don't know what you're talking about. I know that you're standing in my living room, uninvited, trying to kidnap my children while facing criminal charges for burglarizing my house. I know that your ex-wife took half your assets, your business partners are looking for a reason to fire you, and your girlfriend is spiraling into complete mental collapse. How's that working out for you? Derek's face went red. You smug bastard. You think you're so smart, don't you? Compared to you? Einstein looks like an underachiever. That's when Derek snapped. He lunged at me with his fists raised, probably thinking he could intimidate me with physical violence the same way he'd charmed his way into my wife's bed. He was wrong on both counts. I'd been taking martial arts classes since college, not because I was looking for fights, but because I believed in being prepared for life's unpleasant surprises. Derek was bigger than me, but he was also angry, off balance, and completely unprepared for my response. I sidestepped his clumsy punch, grabbed his wrist, and used his own momentum to send him crashing into my coffee table. The table, a heavy oak piece that had belonged to my grandfather, won the encounter decisively. Derek lay on the floor groaning, surrounded by broken glass and scattered magazines. His expensive suit was torn, his perfectly styled hair was disheveled, and his ego was in approximately the same condition as my coffee table. Derek, I said, I want you to remember this moment. Remember how it feels to be humiliated, defeated, and lying on the floor while everyone you're trying to impress watches you fail. Because this is how I felt when I discovered you were sleeping with my wife. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of him sprawled among the wreckage. Smile, Derek. This is going in my Christmas card. Marta was screaming something about assault and battery, but Ross was already calling emergency. Amelia was recording everything on her phone, probably for her social media accounts. When the police arrived, they found Derek still on the floor, Marta in hysterics, and me calmly explaining that I'd acted in self-defense when an intruder attacked me in my own home. The security cameras backed up my story, and Derek's criminal history from the break-in didn't help his credibility. Derek was arrested for assault. Marta was arrested for violating the restraining order I'd filed after the break-in. Both were led away in handcuffs while my children watched from the front porch. As the police cars disappeared down my street, Ross put his hand on my shoulder. Dad, that was the most badass thing I've ever seen. Amelia was still recording. This is definitely going on TikTok. I looked at my destroyed living room, my traumatized children, and the wreckage of what had once been a normal suburban life. Kids, I said, let's order pizza and pretend this is normal. But I knew it wasn't over. Marta and Derek were desperate, cornered, and running out of options. Desperate people don't surrender. They escalate. The final confrontation was coming, and it was going to be brutal. 2 weeks after Derek's arrest, I thought the war was finally over. Marta was in jail awaiting trial on multiple charges. Derek had been fired from the agency and was facing bankruptcy from legal fees and his ex-wife's divorce settlement. My children were safe, my reputation was restored, and my life was slowly returning to normal. I should have known better. The attack came on a Friday night during the worst thunderstorm Chicago had seen in years. I was grading papers in my study when the power went out, plunging the house into darkness. Through the rain-lashed windows, I could see that the entire neighborhood was dark. A transformer had blown somewhere down the street. I was looking for a flashlight when I heard the sound of breaking glass from the kitchen. My first thought was that a tree branch had come through the window. My second thought, as I heard footsteps crunching on broken glass, was that I was about to die. Derek's voice came through the darkness, slurred with alcohol and shaking with rage. Simon, where are you, you bastard? I grabbed my phone and tried to call emergency. But the cell towers were down, probably damaged by the storm. I was alone in a dark house with a drunk, desperate man who blamed me for destroying his life. The smart thing would have been to run, get out of the house, find a neighbor with a working phone, wait for the police. But Derek was between me and the front door, and I wasn't about to let him trash my house again while I cowered in the bushes. Instead, I did something that would have horrified my insurance company, but satisfied my sense of justice. I decided to end this once and for all. I'm right here, Derek, I called out. In the study. I heard him stumbling through the dark house, knocking over furniture and cursing. He was drunk enough to be clumsy, but sober enough to be dangerous. The worst possible combination. When he appeared in the study doorway, silhouetted by lightning flashes, he looked like something from a horror movie. His clothes were soaked, his hair was wild, and he was carrying what looked like a tire iron from his car. "You destroyed everything," he said, his words slurring together. "My marriage, my job, my life, all gone because of you. No, Derek, all gone because of your choices. I just made sure there were consequences." He raised the tire iron. "I'm going to beat you to death, and then I'm going to burn this house down with you in it." "That's a terrible plan, Derek. Very little upside, enormous legal downside. Have you considered therapy instead?" He swung the tire iron at my head. I ducked, and the tool smashed into my bookshelf, sending law journals cascading to the floor. "Hold still, you smug bastard! Derek, you're drunk, you're trespassing, and you're committing assault with a deadly tool. This can only end badly for you." He swung again, and again I dodged. The tire iron hit my desk lamp, exploding it in a shower of sparks and broken glass. "Stop moving! Stop swinging a tire iron at my head!" This went on for several minutes, Derek swinging wildly, me dodging and trying to talk him down. Both of us stumbling around in the dark like characters in a slapstick comedy. Except Derek was genuinely trying to end me, and I was running out of furniture to hide behind. Finally, Derek cornered me near the window. He raised the tire iron with both hands, his face twisted with rage and alcohol-fueled hatred. "Any last words, Professor?" "Yes," I said. "Duck." He looked confused for a split second, which was exactly long enough for my son Ross to tackle him from behind. Ross had driven over to check on me when the power went out, arriving just in time to see Derek breaking into the house. He'd called the police on his way in, then decided not to wait for backup. Derek went down hard, the tire iron flying across the room. Ross, who'd played football in high school and worked construction during college summers, had about 50 pounds and 20 years on Derek. The fight was over before it started. "Dad, are you okay?" "I'm fine. Is he breathing?" Ross checked Derek's pulse. "Yeah, he's alive. Unconscious, but alive." "Good. I'd hate to have to explain a corpse to the police." The power came back on just as the police arrived, flooding the study with light and revealing the full extent of the destruction. Broken furniture, shattered glass, scattered papers, and Derek unconscious on the floor with his hands zip-tied behind his back. Ross had come prepared. The police report was straightforward. Derek had broken into my house during a power outage, attacked me with a tire iron, and been subdued by my son acting in defense of his father. The security cameras had captured everything, including Derek's threats to end me and burn down the house. As the paramedics loaded Derek into an ambulance, he regained consciousness long enough to look at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over," he mumbled through his swollen lips. "Yes, it is," I said. "You just committed home invasion, assault with a deadly tool, and attempted homicide. You're going to prison, Derek, for a long time. You ruined my life." "No, Derek, you ruined your life. I just documented the process." The ambulance drove away, taking Derek to the hospital and then, eventually, to a jail cell where he'd have plenty of time to contemplate his life choices. 3 months later, Derek pleaded guilty to multiple felonies and was sentenced to 8 years in state prison. Marta, facing her own legal troubles, had a complete mental breakdown and was committed to a psychiatric facility for evaluation and treatment. Their affair, which had started as a thrilling secret romance, had ended with both of them destroyed. Professionally, financially, and personally. They'd gambled everything on the assumption that I was too weak to fight back, and they'd lost everything when that assumption proved wrong. The final irony came 6 months after Derek's sentencing, when I received a letter from Marta's psychiatric facility. She wanted to apologize, to explain her actions, to somehow make amends for the damage she'd caused. I read the letter once, then fed it into my paper shredder without responding. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. My children and I rebuilt our lives slowly but steadily. Ross graduated from college and started a successful career in engineering. Amelia transferred to Northwestern and became one of my best students, though she still called me Dad instead of Professor during class, much to the amusement of her classmates. As for me, I returned to teaching with a new appreciation for the power of truth, evidence, and consequences. My experience had taught me that justice isn't always swift or dramatic, but it's inevitable for those patient enough to build a solid case and strong enough to see it through. Sometimes my students ask me about the incident that made me briefly famous in Chicago's legal circles. I tell them that it was a masterclass in the importance of documentation, the value of preparation, and the danger of underestimating your opponents. But mostly, I tell them this. When someone tries to destroy your life with lies, the best revenge is destroying their lies with truth. And truth, properly applied, is the most devastating tool of all. Standing in my rebuilt study, looking at the new furniture and fresh paint that had replaced the wreckage of that final confrontation, I realized that Derek had been right about one thing. I had destroyed his life, but he'd forgotten the most important lesson any criminal law professor could teach. If you're going to commit a crime, make sure you can live with the consequences. Derek couldn't. Marta couldn't. And now they were both paying the price for forgetting that actions have consequences, lies have expiration dates, and some people fight back harder than you expect. I smiled, picked up my red pen, and returned to grading papers. Justice, it turned out, was a lot like teaching. Patient, methodical, and ultimately very satisfying when the lesson finally sinks in.